Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I am Lupine Fiasco. This is Daily FaB gameplay, and today we are playing FaB versus Kassai. For anyone who is new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review replays of games that I played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago. After enough time has passed, that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I will talk through turn cycles and give my thoughts on the line I would take now, and compare that to the line I took then at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future, to take down paper events like the ongoing Road to Nationals, and, most importantly, walk away with that shiny cardboard. If you would like to check out the list I'm playing here, there is a FaB deck link available in the video description below. While you're down there, if you have not already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. A YouTube subscription is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. If you'd like to go above and beyond, then the best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and a Patreon link is also in the video description. A Patreon subscription will get you access to the DFG Discord. At higher tier levels, your name will appear in every DFG video. You'll get bonus DFG content every week. There are even more benefits to come. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for those who can afford to patronize me, I truly appreciate it. Let's talk about our sideboard and expectations for the Kassai matchup. Following yesterday's example, this game is one of a series of reps gained against one of my locals. Ruined Shadows has been deep in the tank on Kassai since before her release, and I was excited to log some FaB games against him. Just like yesterday, I'm testing the hypothesis that aggressive play against Warrior will give us better results than a mid-range style of value blocks. My idea is that we can't outvalue Kassai even with defense reactions, so let's instead race for a couple big turns to go over the top. Valiant Dynamo creates the same point of value every turn that we get from Phoenix Flame, while also helping to block out our valuable 4 damage breakpoints. Dynamo gets more value the longer the game goes, so we want to end the game as quickly as possible. Adding on to that, we're hoping to put the pressure on Kassai before she can find her second copy of Spoils of War. The first will give her a potential 4 copper, but the second is what will really empower blood on her hands. All of this is to say that our chance of winning is inversely proportional to game length. However, like yesterday, I do think that Flamescale Furnace is a better equipment option than Tunic, and wish that I had been running it here. The block value is relevant, and the extra Tunic resource won't always be helpful. We do also want the option to value block if our hand doesn't line up well on offense, which could mean that we have an extraneous blue pitch or 3-block finisher. When possible, preventing gold or copper generation is a great use of cards that may not otherwise get there on offense. If you are going to block, do so on the first Saber attack. Kassai's attack reactions are unlikely to buff the power of the first Saber compared to the second, and you may even catch her without the ability to give the first Saber go again. Overall, I do believe this is an unfavorable matchup for FaB, but our boy has had to skill gap favor decks for months now. Let's test whether an aggressive plan is enough to put some sand in Kassai's eye. We win the die roll, and we are choosing to go second. This hand is kind of poop, honestly. I'm excited to get some blocking here. We are going to do a little extra blocking, if for no other reason than to filter. This may be unnecessary. It could be that we should hold on to this mounting anger. We definitely want to block with FaB and Loyalty to cover the attack buff that the Saber will get from being blocked by an attack action, but whether we use or keep the mounting anger is not a huge deal, honestly. It plays around Blade Flurry, I guess, but it seems unlikely to me that Kassai would play a high value card like Blade Flurry on turn 0. So we will use our entire hand on blocks. take no damage, and take the turn back. We draw into a pretty bad hand of cards. This hand looks very good and is 1 blue away from being an incredible 5-card hand, but as a 4-card hand, it's not great. We want to keep a Spreading Flames or an Art of War. We are not going to IP ourselves by keeping both, and if we do somehow decide to keep Art of War and Spreading Flames, our turn is really bad. The best line we could have is pitching Rising Resentment to attack with Mounting Anger. That is not a great line to play out. So what I believe we should do here is pitch the Art of War. We'll attack with Rising Resentment first, hopefully bait a block from Kassai, and follow up with Mounting Anger. Hopefully she doesn't want to block the Mounting Anger. It seems unlikely, but maybe. And we can use our floating resource to pick up and banish a Phoenix Flame, then attack for 2. There is a line here where we do play out the hand. Art of War does pay for Spreading Flames and Mounting Anger. The only problem with that is we would only get a +1 on the Phoenix Flame. Spreading Flames attacking for 4 value overall is really underrated for what Spreading Flames can do. And all of this is to say that isn't why we're playing a 4-card hand. We are going to play a fairly suboptimal 3-card hand, but it does at least set us up for the future. Between leading with Mounting Anger or Rising Resentment, I don't think it particularly matters. This is not a line I care for. We are missing 1 point of value. Art of War, I would say, is a better card than Spreading Flames, but between the two, I don't think there's a tremendous difference. I think keeping Spreading Flames there and pitching Art of War to deal an extra point of damage would have been a better line than sacrificing that 1 point of damage for Art of War. We fail in our attempt to pressure Kassai out of the first Spoils of War, so we are going to let her generate some copper. Our hand is really good, which is why I don't want to block with it. It also blocks very poorly. And between Spoils of War on the first Saber and In the Swing on the second, we can see, in hindsight, of course, that blocking would have been very ineffective this turn. But we, again, would want to keep this hand anyway. This is one of the better FaB hands that we can draw. We have the pitch to attack with Emberblade. We have our Blaze Headlong. We'll be able to pick up and play Phoenix Flame. Lava Burst is going to get a Shuko trigger. So as far as FaB turns go, the 4-card 17 is, if not the best hand we can have, certainly up there as far as damage. So we would really be disinclined to block with this hand anyway. Just playing out the turn, Kassai keeping a 4-card hand is not incredible for us. And her being able to play second Spoils of War means that she is off to a really, really strong start. Let's think about how we could potentially block this Saber. This hand is not a hand that I particularly want to keep everything from. If for no other reason than we can't play the entire hand. So if we do keep this hand, we're putting a lot of pressure on our Art of War to be good. And it would line up very well for an Art of War turn. We have the blue to pay for the Art of War. We have 2 finishers, one of which we would banish. Our Tunic will be online so that we can pay for Mounting Anger, Art of War, and Searing Emberblade. But this is a turn that I want to block. I want to prevent some of this incoming damage. I want to prevent Kassai from generating more copper. And I really wish I had Furnace here, because I would love to block this Saber with Salt the Wound and Flamescale Furnace. We cover the 5 damage, Kassai doesn't generate the copper, we don't take 4 points of damage from Saber, and on our turn, we would get to attack with Mounting Anger for 4, Searing Emberblade for 3, then Snatch for 4. We get a 3-card 11, possibly a 3-card 12 if Kassai doesn't block, and we still have our Art of War. But even without Furnace, I don't mind blocking this with Salt the Wound and Snatch. We still cover 5, and we have our Tunic, so we can Mounting Anger, Emberblade, Phoenix Flame. We still get a 2-card 8, and we are preventing Kassai's copper generation. I think the worst line we can take here is not blocking at all, which is unfortunately what I'm going to do. We, of course, would have gotten punished for blocking the Saber, as Kassai did have the Blade Flurry, but we can't always put Kassai on it. At a certain point, we need to think that maybe Kassai won't hit the best combination of cards every turn, although in the case of this game, that has yet to happen. But at least in this situation, we are rewarded for not committing to blocks on the Saber. Here, we could still even block. The only out that Kassai has here is 2nd copy of In the Swing, which is unlikely for her to have. So blocking here would be fine, I think. Comparing blocking the first Saber to the second Saber, we have already seen a number of reasons to do one or the other, right? Kassai runs Blade Flurry, Kassai runs In the Swing. If this first Saber didn't have Go Again from Spoils of War, maybe she would have had Blade Runner. There are always going to be times where you get punished for blocking the first or the second Saber that would not have occurred from blocking the other one in that turn. I think on average, based on meta Kassai lists, it is always going to be better with incomplete information to block the first Saber. Because if you block the first Saber, you get punished by Blade Flurry, but you don't get punished by In the Swing, and you don't get punished by Blade Runner. Here, Kassai makes a bunch of copper. We are priced into our Art of War, but like I said, not the worst time to play an Art of War. We want to lead with Mounting Anger, 100%, because Kassai has Dynamo and 3 blocks. She also has 2 pieces of 2-block armor. So we want her to block the Mounting Anger for exact damage before we fire off the Art of War. That said, we don't want to lead with Snatch, because an experienced Kassai will know that if we are opening a 5-card turn with Snatch and we have Snapdragons available, we want to play an Art of War. So all Kassai needs to do here to punish us for leading with Snatch is not block with Dynamo and block with Brave Forge Bracers instead. And now we are inclined to fire off the Art of War anyway. We have to use our snaps, and we don't draw a card from Snatch. So leading with Mounting Anger as a lower priority attack is more valuable when we are making this play. Between banishing Snatch or banishing Salt the Wound, it's a tough call. If we banish Snatch, we're putting a lot of pressure on Salt the Wound to be good, but I do think that for trying to go over the top of Kassai's blocks, that Salt the Wound is the better card to keep in hand. There are a number of draws in our deck. Even if it's just 2 0-for-3 head jabs, that's going to let us put a lot of damage into Kassai. She won't be able to cover all of those breakpoints. Our Salt the Wound is going to stack up. We do have Mask of the Pouncing Lynx to find Tenacity that might get some extra damage in. And even if Kassai does somehow manage to block everything, we just Arsenal Salt the Wound. And Salt the Wound in Arsenal is going to be better for our next over-the-top turn than Snatch would be. So I agree with banishing Snatch here. Now the 2 cards we draw into are atrocious. Second Art of War and Warmonger's Diplomacy are not what we wanted to see. We could play this second Art of War and banish Salt the Wound, but then we're putting a lot of pressure on the top 2 cards of our deck. And I think what I would rather do in this situation is save the second Art of War for a future turn. What I want to do instead of playing Art of War is pitch my Warmonger's Diplomacy to FaB to pick up a Phoenix Flame, which we can then banish to the Mounting Anger and still have 2 floating resources for Emberblade. I don't consider playing Warmonger's Diplomacy a viable option for the same reason that I don't like playing it against Dorinthia, which is that so much of Kassai's damage is reliant on reactions, not actions. So forcing Kassai into war really doesn't reduce her damage output, and if we price ourselves into playing Warmongers here, we're sacrificing a lot of potential damage to make that happen. So we will just rearrange our triggers. We will respond to our Mounting Anger trigger by picking up our Phoenix Flame. Between banishing the Phoenix Flame or Salt the Wound, I prefer to banish Phoenix Flame because the Phoenix Flame buffed by Mounting Anger, Art of War, and itself will come in for 3 power, which means Kassai cannot easily block it with armor. She would need to give us a card from hand to prevent Phoenix Flame from hitting, which is more valuable than getting the front half of Brave Forge or Grains. With 2 hits on the chain, we will just attack with Salt for 6. At this point, I'm checking how many cards Kassai has blocked with. The answer is 3. That is not worth Snap's Pouncing Links to me. Considering that we have an Art of War in Arsenal, we can wait on Pouncing Links. Kassai getting ready for her massive turn. She finds the blood on her hands really much sooner than we needed her to. This is a tremendous 5-card hand from her, which we can't stop. It doesn't kill us, which is our saving grace here. What we need to look at is our hand of cards and decide if value blocking is at all worth it. We won't be able to stop Kassai from making her gold. We won't be able to stop her from generating copper with Outland Skirmish. So we are absolutely taking this first saber. If we were going to block anything, it would be the smaller sabers on the tail end of Kassai's turn. Probably not this one either. The only card in our hand that we would think about blocking with is one of these 2 Nasty Surprises. Keeping the second Nasty Surprise and Brand with Cinderclaw lets us play our Art of War. Our other option would be to block with the 2 Nasty Surprises, and on our turn, we Rising Resentment, Emberblade, pick up and play Phoenix Flame, get our 2 cards 7. And maybe that is what we're supposed to do here, just mitigate some of the life loss, stop the bleeding as much as we can, and look for a better Art of War in the future. I might have been feeling a little pressure in this game to try and make something happen. Maybe I was overestimating Kassai's ability to do some burst damage. We are looking at 4 more damage after that 5 power Centauri Saber, which would have put us to, what is that, 8? If we had chosen to block with our Nasty Surprises instead. Kassai could very likely do 8 points of damage in a turn. So I don't disagree with the decision to just keep a hand here. Probably it is best just to try and make something happen. We're in a really bad spot. But Kassai is at 17. She is really at an effective 22. Higher than that. But if we can go super far over the top with the Art of War, she can't block with Grains and Brave Forge Bracers twice in the same turn, which we could potentially punish her for. I do think we should lead with Art of War rather than Rising Resentment. I think that this is a mistake because if Kassai sniffs it out, she just puts a 3-block in front of Rising Resentment. I think it would have been more helpful to know what our hand looks like before sending this damage. Now, the cards we draw into are both bad, so it wouldn't have saved our turn to lead with Art of War. But in general, if you aren't sending a 3-power attack that will hit that 4-power breakpoint, lead with your Art of War. The cards we draw into are not great. Flamecall Awakening has the potential to be very good, but we need to pick up and play our Phoenix Flame before we attack with it so that we can find our second Phoenix Flame. So sequencing for this turn means that we are probably pitching this blue Brand with Cinderclaw. What we can do next is Searing Emberblade for 3 go again, see if we can bait Kassai into blocking it, then send blue Mounting Anger for 4 go again. It'll get buffed by Art of War and Shuko. It will likely get cards from Kassai. If it doesn't, then it can banish the Flamecall Awakening, which we will still have the resources to play. And at some point in this chain, we are probably going to break Pouncing Links for Tenacity. Tenacity most likely going to be the best card in our deck for the situation. As Kassai still has so much armor, she still has 3 cards in hand, she is going to be a little more inclined to defend this very heavily. So already we have 3 blocking cards on the combat chain. And this is just 2 more, so we will be able to get our hit in here with Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. If Kassai really overcommits to blocks, that's fantastic for us. It looks like she has successfully sniffed out what we're doing. So unlikely to block the Flamecall Awakening or the Phoenix Flame, but even so, that means we are getting some damage in, and we'll have Tenacity coming in for 8 at the end of all of this. Unfortunately, Kassai can just take this damage and go down to 1, and the hand that we draw into, while okay, I suppose, is not going to get us there in the face of a second copy of Blood on our hands. The Saber comes in for 4. At this point, we're very likely just dead. We will be able to keep some card in our hand. It's going to be Snatch, most likely. We'll block this Saber for 5, take 1 point of damage, then give our Tunic to block the second Saber. Either way, we're going down to 1 here. Snatch is going to get blocked by Armor and a card from hand, and Kassai can kill us from 1. So we can talk about a few things that happened in this game while it just wraps up here. We never used our Spring Tunic, so getting just 2 less life compared to using Flamescale Furnace is something that I think will happen more often than not. It's my impression of Tunic after playing a number of games versus Warrior. We just don't have enough opportunities to use Tunic. We don't usually need 4 resources in a turn. Usually we need 3 to play something like Mounting Anger, Searing Emberblade, or Spreading Flames, Art of War, pick up and play Phoenix Flame. It is unlikely that we need the Tunic resource. Tunic resource really only comes into play on Spreading Flames Art of War turns, Spreading Flames Mounting Anger turns where you have that 1 floating resource that you can't use. But more often than not, we need Flamescale Furnace because it gives us 2 points of life, and every once in a while fixes a 4-red hand. Also, we still had our Snapdragon Scalers, and I don't think that is anything that we messed up on. It isn't that we missed an opportunity to use Snapdragons and that we were too conservative with it. I think our draws just didn't really line up to get value out of it. The first Art of War turn didn't give us a good opportunity to snap Pouncing Links for more damage, and the second Art of War turn didn't have a finisher in hand, so we just never found a chance to use Snapdragon Scalers. We can also look at Kassai's turns and see, what did she draw? Her first turn was a wash because she went first. Her second turn was Spoils of War. Her third turn was Spoils of War. Her fourth turn was Blood on her hands. Her fifth turn was Blood on her hands. We, I think, played about as well as we could have played, given the situation that we had, the hands that we drew and the equipment that we were using. I think overall we should have been looking to value block more often than we did, but for as much as Kassai can high roll, I think this was an example of that situation. 2 spoils and 2 blood on her hands in the first 5 turns of the game is rough to come back from as FaB. And even so, we put Kassai to 1. And I don't think we make that happen if you're running Sink Belows or That All You Got. I think we need to go full aggression except for Flamescale Furnace, which is just a solid card for blocking some of these saber attacks. So I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope you learned something. Kassai is a really difficult matchup, but I think it is possible to power through as FaB. So if this video was helpful to you, then head jab that like button. My comments are always open for questions or feedback. Again, if you haven't already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. It's free, helps me out a lot, but no matter what you do, don't miss another episode of Daily FaB Gameplay coming tomorrow. And until then, take care.